Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's show, frightening and chilling stories. I hope you guys will enjoy as much as I. As ever, don't forget to like, comment and share. And don't forget to hashtag Team Fear. Without further ado, let's get into tonight's story, entitled The Monster of the Manor. Let's get straight into that. I was only about 6 years old at the time. My mother led me for so long through the woods along a trail barely comprehensible until we finally reached an old mansion. It was far less decayed back then and still had electricity and running water, but it still felt run down and ancient. "Why have we come here?" I remember asking her. I was scared. Maybe she could see it. She looked at me with eyes that I thought expressed annoyance, but I know now conveyed pity. She didn't answer me, and instead, she motioned for me to go inside. I knew from the first moment I stepped in that I would hate this house. It felt lonely and destitute. My mother led me upstairs and pointed towards a door. "You have to go in there," she told me. "Why?" I started to ask, but she cut me off. "You need to." I did as I was told. I was only little. After I stepped into the room, she slammed the door behind me. I heard the bolt and it locked. I hit at it. "Mum! Mum, what are you doing?" She was crying when she responded. "Something is coming for you. You need to stay in here to keep safe." She used the word something in describing what she said was coming for me. Something. She wasn't using the word monster yet, but she would. Yes, she most certainly would. It was a bathroom that she had locked me in, antiquated and rotting. The toilet still functioned, and there was running water, but it was otherwise bedraggled and run down. There was a gap between the bottom of the door and the floorboard big enough for food to be slid under. I would stay locked in that room for weeks, maybe even months, because a monster was coming after me, don't you know? A monster. "Mother," I remember shouting through the door after a couple of days, "won't this monster kill you when it arrives? Shouldn't you be in here with me?" But she told me she was safe, and that the monster couldn't hurt her, and it was me that it was after. She slid food under the gap 3 times a day, and I was always grateful for it. Sometimes she would read stories to me, sitting against the door. She would tell me it wouldn't be long now. After the monster came, I could come out. I was scared and alone in that bathroom, and sometimes I would think back to when I was younger. I would be lying in bed at night, listening to my mother sing to me my favourite lullabies, telling me everything was okay, and that I should go to sleep. That there was nothing to worry about. She would run her fingers through my hair when she did this. I would stare out of the bedroom window as she sang, looking at the stars. They seemed to twinkle in the rhythm of her voice. I started singing those lullabies, locked in that room, thinking of those times with my mother, hoping one day life would go back to that. Sometimes she would sit outside the locked door and sing along with me. I liked it when she did that. It was the closest I had to what had previously been standard. Sometimes I would be fast asleep, lying in that room, and would awake to a fierce growl or roar echoing through the old house. The monster was there. I would jump up in a flash and yell for my mother. She would assure me she was fine. "The monster can't hurt me," she reminded me. "You're just lucky you're locked safely in that room." But I started to question how safe I really was. One night, after a few weeks in that bathroom, I had a terrible nightmare. I remember it vividly. My mother stood outside the door and told me, "The monster left last night. It's gone. It's safe to come out now." And then she unlocked the door. But when it opened, it wasn't my mother standing on the other side. It was the monster. It was a hideous looking thing, like nothing from this world. It lunged at me and began to rip me apart. It didn't feel like a dream. The pain felt real. The pain was real. It was eating me alive, taking large bites of my flesh and devouring me. The pain was surreal, and it went on for minutes. It was like nothing I thought could ever happen, and slowly my consciousness started to fade away. The world got darker around me, and the pain receded, and eventually there was no longer any pain at all, just darkness, all-encompassing darkness. I was dead. And the moment it felt as though death was finally setting in was the precise moment when I awoke. But still in lightlessness, I thought I really was dead for a moment. That death was just quiet darkness. But it was just that bathroom light had burnt out. "Mum!" I shouted. "It's dark in here." She didn't respond to me. I could hear her crying as she walked away from the door. So, from that moment forward, my time in that room was in complete and utter darkness. I'm not sure how many weeks passed after that, but I would still wake up to the sounds of the monster. It was happening more frequently. I could never hear it clearly while listening for it, but those growls and shrieks would wake me from my sleep. My mother would stay by the door, less and less. And then one day, I noticed her sliding far more food than usual under the door. Weeks' worth of food. I knew what that meant. She would be leaving me. I couldn't bear it. I started beating on the door. "Mother, let me out of here. I don't care about the monster. I don't care. Just let me out. I can't stay in here any longer." She didn't respond to me. Instead, she sat by the door and sang to me. My favourite lullabies from when I was younger. All nights she sang. She was crying at the same time, but still singing. I should have cherished it. I should have listened and relished in those last moments that we had together. But I didn't. I beat on the door the entire night, screaming at her, begging for her to let me out. After uncountable hours, she finally stopped singing. "Goodbye, my son," she said. Her footsteps echoed as she made her way down the stairs, and I heard the front door quietly close behind her. I was by myself now, alone in the dark, locked in, abandoned. Words cannot describe the betrayal I felt, the loneliness, the seclusion and desolation. Even with everything that's happened since, I can say with certainty that that was the worst that I'd ever felt. Nothing will ever be able to match it. Those last few days were unbearable. I was still in pitch blackness and had eaten the last of my food. I thought I would starve, but then I started to feel something new. Something I had repressed for all of that time. Anger. Anger at being abandoned. Anger for being lonely. Anger for being locked away from the world. Fury. Vitriol. I went to the bathroom door and struck it, and it shattered away before me. It seemed quite brittle, like cardboard. Light shone in, and I could see myself. My hands were massive and hideous. I saw the debris of the door shattered in front of me, and that's when I became aware of it. I had finally realized it. I was the monster. I suppose my mother knew what I was turning into, and she had a tough choice to make. She could have ended my life and spared the world of what I would become, but I guess she couldn't bear it. I think back now and realise how horrible those weeks must have been for her as well, as I slowly transformed into this beast. You see, I can think these thoughts and write these words, but if I tried to speak to you, you wouldn't understand. It will sound normal to me, but what you would hear would be shrieks and growls of a hideous monster. I suppose I was making those sounds as I slept, and would sometimes wake myself up. And that last day, when she sang to me for hours, I see what that must have been like for her. I hit the door begging for her to let me out, but what she must have heard was a horrible feral monster smashing at the door trying to break through. But still, she stayed all night, singing to me. Maybe she correctly guessed that some part of me could still understand. Countless years have passed since then. What was already an ancient house back then is far worse shape now. And I hate this place just as much as I knew I would from the moment I stepped in. At night I run through the local woods catching wildlife. It's what I live off now. Sometimes I see some brave townsfolk venturing into these woods. I've even tried talking to them a few times, but they couldn't understand me. And oh, how scared they were. How they ran, and how they screamed. I suppose the town at the end of the forest must have many tales about me. The disgusting and ghastly monster of the old mansion. I am probably the boogeyman that will come after the misbehaving children, the shadow peering back at them from the darkness of the woods. And sometimes, on the calmest of nights, they may even hear my horrifying shrieks, squeals and growls echoing down onto the town from above the trees. Oh, how it must scare the children. But I hope this letter reaches you all in good form. This is my tale. This is what I am. I mean you all no harm, and you can tell those children that what they hear isn't so unnatural. Tell them I wasn't always so different from them, and those sounds aren't as they appear, no matter how scary they sound on those calm, windless nights. They come from a lonely, sad and broken being, as it looks up towards the stars at night and watches them twinkle, singing its favourite lullabies. Wow, absolutely fantastic short story there. As ever though guys, please do let me know down below in the comments what you thought. Please do like and share. And don't forget to hashtag Team Fear. Stay tuned for tomorrow as I bring back The Scariest Thing in the Woods. Had some slight trouble with the editing today, so I haven't had a chance to record it. But I'll get out for you tomorrow night guys. I hope you're all well and happy and have enjoyed the show. And above all, remember, be safe. Not sorry.